Welcome back.
Today, we go into the depths of social selling. We start with what social selling really is and, of course, what it is not.
Irrespective of whether you are in sales or pre-sales, this episode is filled with tangible advice on how to become a magnet on social media.
And with that, enjoy the episode. Sales Excellence, your podcast for software B2B sales and pre-sales. My name is Tim, and I'm a sales engineer at Seismic.
And I'm Jan, a pre-sales leader at SAP. Welcome to a new episode of our show.
Yeah, indeed. Welcome to a new episode. And this is actually a first part of a two-part series that we're going to do on the topic of social selling, which has been a requested topic for a little bit now. And we are going to host two subject matter experts on the topic of social selling. And this very first episode, we will concentrate on the fundamentals, while we, in the second episode, go a little bit on a deeper dive specifically for sales engineers. So thanks for tuning in. And with that being said, let me introduce today's guest. So he has a background of 25 years in marketing. In fact, he also ran his own company, worked for some time at LinkedIn, which is going to be very relevant later. And he's now a marketing director at Seismic, in fact, a colleague of mine. His specialty, of course, social selling. Hi, Steve. How are you doing?
Excellent, Tim. And Jan, I'm really happy to be here talking with you today about my absolute favorite topic.
Yeah, indeed. And I mean, for the past 2 years, for obvious reasons, the topic of social selling has become more and more prominent everywhere, you could say. Yeah. Just this morning, I spoke to an Austrian company, very small sized, and they're now all of a sudden, they used to do their meetings on site and the events, and they even sometimes run adverts in print media. But now all of a sudden, they're interested in social selling. And our listenership is the same way. I've received multiple requests and messages. Hey, why don't you talk about it? And maybe it's time to actually clarify that term a little bit. What is social selling, and maybe what is social selling not? Steve, maybe we can start with that.
That's a great place to start because, in some people have a very negative association of social selling. They're like, oh, no, not that. So social selling is a big basket of behaviors, and some of them are not good behaviors, in my opinion. And I think the term has been a little bit burned in some people's minds and in some firms because it was nothing more than hunting. It was just like, oh yeah, social selling, that's when we send hundreds of connect and pitch attempts at everyone. Just every day we're banging out connection requests. If they respond, we immediately hit them with a sales pitch. It's all a numbers game. And it doesn't tend to be effective, for one thing, and it certainly isn't a good experience for the people on the receiving end of it. And a lot of people are absolutely fed up with that, and they're just done with being hunted. They don't get up in the morning and say, "Can't wait to go on LinkedIn and be hunted by a bunch of salespeople." So I don't go anymore. Like, I'm done with it. They just ignore those. So I think there's a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths about social selling. To me, that behavior is not social selling. I don't know if you want to call that just like social outbound or social hunting or something, but I believe that social selling is a much more holistic, buyer-centric process. And in fact, I've been making a real concerted effort to try to rebrand my approach and others who think like I do as buyer-centric social selling, as social selling that is actually valuable and helpful and wanted by your buyers, as opposed to a more of an adversarial approach where you're just hunting them. So I believe that ultimately buyer-centric social selling is the future, and that's where you become the seller that people actually want to talk to. That most sellers spend most of their time trying to get people to talk to them through every manner of outbound email and telephone call and in-mails and everything else. I'd rather flip that around, and I'd rather become the magnet. I'd rather become the buyer, rather the seller that buyers want to talk to because they see that talking to me will be a valuable experience for them.
Got it. So Jan and I, we recently spoke to an SDR, in fact, on this show regards to Matthias Schaper. And she actually said that a typical C-level executive who is a decision maker at a company that is potentially a target for like software sales companies gets 100 and plus connection requests and pitches on LinkedIn on a single day. So I think that speaks volumes in regards to what you just talked about. I think you call it at some point pitch and slap or something like that.
Yeah, it's often called, a pitch slap, or, like, don't pitch slap me. Not my term, but I love it. Also, connect and pitch, right? And that's crazy. I get probably 8 or 10 a day, and I get frustrated. I cannot even imagine what it would be like to have 100 a day. And if your approach to social is to tell your people to go do that, you're not rising above the noise. You are the noise. Like, you're just adding to the problem, and you are in no way standing out.
Right. So with that, I think we have a clear idea of what social selling is not, right? And you just framed it in a way, okay, what is more the more recommended approach, right? And you said, okay, as opposed to reaching out to people and asking everyone to speak to you, you say, hey, why don't you become that magnet and become the person that people actually want to speak to, as opposed to you having to actively reach out? I mean, I'm fully aware it's a very big question, but what would that look like in detail? What would a person that is attracting these type of conversations behave like on LinkedIn?
Right. I think it starts with mindsets, and then it moves into skill sets, and then it moves into tactics. So it starts with a mindset of being buyer-centric. It starts with an understanding of what you just said, Tim, that the very people you want to engage and you want to reach are being hunted relentlessly. They're being inundated with sales messages and marketing messages all the time, and that just being part of that noise is not going to help you. So if you start with, why is that person even on LinkedIn? They're not there to be hunted. They're not there to read ads. They're not there to jump on a call for 15 minutes with every random person who shows up in their inbox. Why are they on LinkedIn? They're there to learn. They're there to advance their own interests. That's it, right? Everybody wants to learn new things, and everybody wants to advance their own career or advance their own business. And if you start with that mindset, and then you start saying, okay, how can I show up with an honest intent to help in that process? And instead of making it about me and what I want, how can I actually be interesting, relevant, and valuable and helpful to you? How can I help you learn? And how can I help you advance your own interests? And how can I do it in the public forum? Because if I go straight to the connection requests and straight to the direct messages, I'm just more part of that noise. So to me, it's about engaging in the public conversation. It's about not trying to race to the direct messages. It's about sharing valuable, interesting content. It's about bringing my own voice. It's about sharing learnings and insights and stories and data and challenges, and freely sharing it in the public forum, and then engaging in the public conversation, in the comments on my own posts, and also in the comments on other people's posts, and not trying to turn everything into a meeting right away, and not trying to turn everything into a one-on-one conversation, but truly showing up and speaking up in the public forum such that people start to notice me, people start to respect me, people start to like me, people even start to trust me. And now I start to rise above the noise. I start to rise above the crowd, and a whole lot of good things can start to happen. First of all, conversations in that public forum can start to move into more private forums. A great back and forth in the comments can then move into direct messages, can move to email, can move to the phone, can move to in-person over time if you don't kill it by trying to rush it. But also a whole lot of other people are looking in, they're learning, they're forming a good positive impression of you as an individual professional and also of your firm. And you start to put yourself and your firm into their consideration set. And I think that's a critical thing. Nobody's ever going to read your LinkedIn posts and just say, hey, send me a purchase order. That's not how it works. But if you can earn your way into their consideration set so that when they think about that problem that needs to be solved or that initiative that needs to be tackled, and you personally and your firm immediately comes into their mind as one of the 2 or 3 highly credible and relevant individuals and firms to solve that problem or run that initiative for them, well, you're in a vastly better position right now than the 100 other people who are just hunting that person in their inbox.
So you started out with explaining the mindset, right? And if I would summarize it, it's basically centricity around the users that are actually on the platform and understanding why they're there and then paying into that reason to actually become meaningful there.
Being honestly helpful to them and not just trying to turn everything into something about me.
Right.
Yeah.
But now you also talked about, okay, now me as a business, I'm now potentially interested in running such a program. Maybe I don't do it today and now I want to move forward and then do it. And then you spoke about the second piece, which is the skill set, right? So what type of skills would my sales organization need or individual sellers need in order to actually fulfill that mindset, to actively act out the way you describe it?
Right. So once you've truly embraced that mindset, right, now you need to put it into action. So now we start getting into things like, well, let's start with your profile. Let's just revamp your LinkedIn profile, because a lot of salespeople's profiles are terrible, right? They look like they're looking for their next job. They don't in any way look like they care about their customers and their prospects. Some of them, they're that chest thumping, bragging thing about, 180% quota attainment and been to President's Club 4 years in a row. And any buyer reading that just thinks, I'm just money to you. You don't care about me. I'm just another notch on your success. That's not buyer-centric, and that does not make me trust you, and that does not make me want to talk to you. So, but at the same time, don't have just a boring resume about like where you used to work. Turn your profile into a buyer-centric marketing asset. Turn it into something that actually speaks to who you are, who you serve, how you help. So that when I read your profile, I learn something, I start to like you, and I start to trust you, and I start to want to talk to you. So that's fundamental. Beyond that, the content that you share. It can't just all be your company content. It can't just be like, hey, we're so great. We won an award. We raised money. Nothing wrong with sharing that stuff. Mix it in. But the bulk of what you share should actually be helpful to people, whether it's a good mixture of third-party content from industry magazines and academia, whatever, but also your own voice. Share your own learnings and insights and challenges in a way that demonstrates both subject matter expertise and buyer-centric passion. And so you want to share content that isn't just a bait and switch, isn't just a hook to try to get a sales conversation going immediately. Like truly educate and truly inspire and truly help with your content. And there's a real skill around thinking through your content strategy and then also executing on that strategy, the way you write posts, the way you set up shared content to create some curiosity, to take a stand and then back it up, not just be bland and boring, not be part of the background noise, but actually be compelling and interesting. So your profile is part of it. The content that you share is part of it. And then the way you engage with others is really the third part of it. Some examples of that is not leading with the connection request to that executive. Like you said, that executive who's getting, 100 connection requests a day and is ignoring them. And, especially if you've got sales in your title, they know what's next. They're going to ignore your connection request. Well, follow them instead, right? Don't go to the connection request. That's a two-way street. They have to accept that, and they probably won't. Instead, follow them. Just even if their profile shows the connect button, just hit the little more or the 3 dots or whatever it is, and then follow them. That's a one-way thing. Like I can follow Richard Branson, I can follow Elon Musk, right? They don't have to agree. So now I want to be following all the people I want to reach. And of course, many of them don't actively engage on LinkedIn, but some do. And you know what? They're all connected to their colleagues. So maybe there's 10 executives in that company that I really want to reach, and only 2 of them are active on LinkedIn, but I'm going to follow all 10 of them. And those 2 that do engage, I'm going to or do share stuff. I'm going to engage with them in really positive ways. I'm going to celebrate their wins. I'm going to celebrate what they care about. I'm going to look to engage in conversation and not try to jump into their direct messages with an ask, but publicly engage them in really positive ways and start to build a little bit of rapport with them. But also some of their colleagues are looking in and they're seeing this and they're starting to get a little bit of a sense of who I am and who my firm is. So I think, we could go all day on more specific skills, but I think just fundamentally reframe your profile, share actually buyer-centric content, and engage in really positive ways. Those are the three critical skills.
Jan, I know you. I saw you wanted to ask a question. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I want to ask a question. First of all, I want to say I fully agree with what Steve said, and I really feel it. And it sounds so easy. And what I realize, not a lot of people or not a lot of companies are really doing it. And often, from my experience, it already fails with the mindset piece. So they are not able to shift from A to B, but it would be necessary to do so because otherwise you wouldn't be able to act like you said. And one thing I gathered from my conversations, and maybe you can add your experience to it, there is a fear of losing control because now it's, hey, I'm giving, I'm contributing, and nobody will promise me that I get back anything. So on the other hand, hey, I have my templates and whatever, and I shoot. And some people will click the accept button or whatever. So how do you see that aspect of the game?
First of all, you're right. It's exactly the problem. People have no qualms about sending 100 emails fully knowing that 99 of them are going to be ignored. But then they object to spending some time writing a post. Well, because what if a bunch of people ignore it? Well, yeah, a bunch of people are going to ignore it, but not everyone, So there's a bit of an inconsistency there already. I think it comes down to a whole lot of people and a whole lot of organizations over rotate on measurement. And people used to say, well, if it's not in Salesforce, it didn't happen. There's this sense that everything has to be measured. And if it's not cleanly measurable, then it's not important. And I fundamentally disagree with that. I mean, word of mouth is not measurable or not easily measurable, nor is trust, nor is reputation. But ask any salesperson, does your reputation matter? Do people trusting you? Does that matter? Do relationships matter? They'll say, oh yeah, of course they do. Okay, now tell me exactly how you measure those and put them in a dashboard. They can't, right? So why now? Why here are you going to insist on simple transactional measurement? I think it's just a huge mistake. And that's why, again, you got to start with the mindset, because you could talk all day to sales leaders and individual salespeople about tactics. But if their mindset is still in transactional, easily measurable, you're wasting your time. You gotta start with the mindsets about building trust, about building reputation, about standing above the crowd. I mean, it's incredibly noisy out there. Tim talked about 100 connection requests a day and stuff like that. I mean, it is crazy noisy. Everywhere you go, somebody wants a piece of you, right? I mean, we all know how hard it is to sell in this world, but stop for a minute and think about how hard it is to buy. I mean, it's hard to be a buyer. And frankly, a lot of sellers have never been on the other side of the table. And I have. I've bought a lot of software. I've bought a lot of services. I know how hard it is to buy. It's really hard to know who to listen to, who to spend time with, and who to trust. Everybody wants a piece of you, and everybody has big promises, and everybody says that what they sell is perfect and easy to deploy, and the ROI is through the roof, and they work with the world's biggest brands, and trust me, bro, but it's really, really hard to buy. And I'll tell you, as a buyer, I gravitate towards those individuals and those people who give more than they take, and who truly make a good faith effort to publicly share and engage and help me. And then when I am ready to buy, they are absolutely near the top of my list. And isn't that what we want? Like as sellers, don't you want to be the guy? You know how like we have the guy like, oh, my my roof is leaking. Oh, I got a guy. Or my car broke down. Oh, I know a guy. Like, don't you want to be the guy? Don't you want to be the one that people refer and people trust? And like there are some people out there on LinkedIn and some firms that are doing a great job of being the guy. Like it's like I know who to talk to. And as I said before, I'm not guaranteed I'm going to buy from them. But if it's time for me to solve for that, they are 100% going to be in my top 3. And I'm 100% going to go talk to them. And they're already halfway there in my mind. The people who keep peppering my inbox with messages that I instantly delete without reading, they're nowhere.
So I want to draw a comparison here, right? And I think this is a little bit of a convergence between B2B and B2C, right? So I really love YouTube, right? I even have a premium subscription to everyone listening. I'm not getting paid for this. I can really recommend it because the adverts on YouTube are flippin' annoying, and 10 euros a month, at least that's what the price is in Germany, is well worth it. Not the point. I love YouTube and I consume a lot of content on YouTube, different topics. Business, video games, sports, whatever, right? And on YouTube, it's quite similar to LinkedIn because on YouTube, you have a homepage where you don't necessarily only see the channels that you've subscribed to, but you get some inspiration from other channels. Here and there, the algorithm decides, hey, maybe Tim, you like this, maybe you like this, right? And it's pretty much the LinkedIn feed in that sense that when I go on LinkedIn today, I don't only see the content from my first level contacts, I see second and third level when my first level contacts are starting to interact with it. So it's like a little bit of a curated algorithm, curated feed that I have there. And in YouTube, this leads me to discover new things, new channels, new content creators, and then I start to subscribe if I really like the content and watch it on a regular basis. And this is the way I have started to see LinkedIn now as well, right? I see it as as you mentioned earlier, like a feed for me to get inspiration to learn from. And I'm actively going on the hunt for people who are posting things on LinkedIn that I really care about. And I start to follow them. I start to subscribe to them, as you would say on the YouTube terms. And it's so far away from anything that resembles from a CV or like me advertising myself for a certain position to get hired or anything like that. And it's so funny here in Germany, we had a native German, or still have, native German social network for professional connections. It's called Xing. I don't know, Steve, if you've heard of it. I don't think it's present in Canada, but we have it here in Germany. And to be honest, I deleted my account because it has completely become irrelevant for me. Because they don't have that. They don't have the possibility to share content, to interact with it, or at least I have never really discovered it. I don't know, maybe it's just very hidden. It's purely me and my CV, and you can, of course, send messages and so on, but it's not about this. Me actively
It's not a conversation,
drawn.
right, Tim? It's not a conversation. And that's the magic of LinkedIn.
Indeed it is, yeah. So I've started to compare, both Jan and myself on very humble terms are also obviously with the podcast and with our LinkedIn presence, a little bit of a content creator, you could say, right? Obviously we are very small, but it's our hobby and this is why we do it. So, but we have also started to embrace that mindset. We are there to provide meaningful things so people want to engage with the content that we put up there, as opposed to basically being that digital ad. I think that's the comparison I sometimes like to use, where I have people in my network, first level contacts, they post 10, 15 times their company content. It's ridiculous. I mean, I've blocked the person now because it's just it's ridiculous, but some people do that. Yeah. So thank you for that.
And they're trying to be helpful. They think they're doing a good thing, but they have not been taught and they have not embraced a buyer-centric, audience-centric, client-centric mindset. So they're that person who's sharing their company content constantly, they're trying to be a good employee, a good coworker. They're trying, but they have not embodied the right mindset. And what's the outcome? You block them.
Maybe they get compensated for it.
I'd rather be compensated insofar as a seller, I become a magnet for the right kind of conversations and I close more deals. And as a company, we all do it. And, we drive our valuation through the roof.
And I mean, I agree, but I think it's not uncommon to compensate people for like stupid tasks. Let me put it that way. And I think that's what you said, right? So if I, as a company, would like to change the game, I would obviously, first of all, concentrate on creating an environment where the mindset you just described can grow and evolve to get there, and not compensate people for sharing company posts on LinkedIn.
And then think about attribution in more qualitative ways. Think about, I have people who directly reach out to me and say, Steve, can you talk to me about Seismic? Steve, can you demo Seismic to me? They directly reach out to me. And I know that some of my colleagues do as well, because I hear the stories. But these things are not captured in attribution software, right? Maybe they hear you on a podcast, they see on LinkedIn, they hear about you from their friends and their colleagues, and there's all this positive word of mouth, and then they go to your website and they request a demo, and the attribution software says it was Google search.
They've downloaded the ebook.
Yeah. It wasn't that. It was trust. It was reputation. It was word of mouth, cultivated on social, cultivated in communities, cultivated amongst peers by people who are truly embodying a buyer-centric mindset. But the attribution software says, oh, that was like direct search. So you've got to find ways to share the stories. You've got to find ways to understand the real path that buyers took towards you. And then that can help with what you said before, Jan, about the need for measurement. You're still not going to be able to fully measure this. But, so for instance, I was reading a thing the other day about a company that, so first off, they have a how did you find us form on their website. That's not a drop-down menu. It's just an open text box. And people will write, oh, well, I heard the CEO on this podcast, and then I saw a bunch of their people on LinkedIn, and, blah, blah, and my friend told me they're awesome, right? Then they know that, and then they share it in a Slack channel. So the whole company sees it. Or maybe it's like, why are you here requesting a demo? Oh, because I've heard great things about Tim. And then that goes into the Slack channel, and then everybody's high-fiving Tim. Way to go, Tim. That stuff you're doing with your podcast and on social and everything, it works, right? So you got to find ways. I think it's a balance. On one hand, you got to understand that you can't measure all of this, but some of it you can, and then you've got to get better at how you share that information. And then people see Tim get mentioned in that Slack channel a few times, and they're like, I want some of that. Maybe I should be more active. And so, yeah, it all starts with mindsets, and then there's real skill sets in how to do it as individuals and how to enable it and empower it as a firm.
So now, if we consider our audience, right? Pre-sales, sales, maybe sales or pre-sales leaders, and now they're wondering, okay, well, do I need to consider social selling also for my team, or are there instances where it actually for us or me as a company or as an individual even doesn't make sense? So does everyone need social selling?
I say absolutely yes. And I'm not saying that it replaces the other things you do. I'm not saying don't send emails. I'm not saying don't make calls. That would be foolish. I'm saying do this too. And it will enhance that. So what I mean is across all things. So again, starting with that profile, those people need a profile that builds trust. Right? Whether you're an SDR or a BDR at the front edge of this process, you're a sales engineer who's coming in to be an expert and really help people through their buying journey. Does your LinkedIn profile build confidence and build trust, or is it just a list of where you used to work? Right? So fix that. And if you are someone who is doing a lot of prospecting and doing a lot of outbounding, I firmly believe that building a strong reputation on LinkedIn will help you in the email box too. And why? Because for all of our obsession with subject lines and cadences and opening sentences and social proof, and should I use 3 bullet points or 4, and all the things we obsess about when it comes to prospecting emails, hardly anybody talks about who the sender is. We talk about the what's in the email and what's all this stuff, but who's it from? I get a lot of prospecting emails, and from my perspective, they're from nobody. Like they're from nobody I've ever heard of, nobody who sparks even a tiny bit of positive reaction in my mind. So it's a very easy thing for me at the start of every day just to go delete, 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 delete down the line. But if I recognize that name, like, oh, wait a minute, I'm not so quick on the delete button, right? It's like, wait, I've seen this person. There's the name. Like I pause, it breaks the pattern. The pattern is a bunch of randoms with prospecting emails that all start to look and sound the same. The pattern break is the name. I've heard that name. Who is that guy? And then a little bit of positive connotations because I've seen that guy on LinkedIn really engaging with people, really being helpful, really being valuable. Well, you just broke the pattern and I didn't delete. Now I'm at least going to read that email. I'm not promising you I'm going to respond to it, but the chance is non-zero. And frankly, for me, if you are nobody to me, the chance of me responding to your email is zero. And if you are a little bit of a somebody to me, it is now non-zero. So that's better. So I firmly believe that you build your reputation on LinkedIn, and it helps you on LinkedIn, but it can also help you in the inbox.
Devil's advocate in this instance, right? Before we conclude the conversation, especially if you look at SDRs or even AEs in tech companies, the churn is real, right? People are staying not anymore like they used to 10 years at a company, maybe not even 5. Maybe, in fact, every 2 or 3 years in the tech space, people are changing jobs, right? And what you're just describing, of course, has something to do very much with personal brand. So let's say I work for 3 years, I work at Salesforce, and then I work for 3 years at SAP, and then I go for 3 years to Oracle. And is there not something lost there? Because now I start to build up certain reputation, also obviously for the solutions and the portfolio on social media. And now all of a sudden, the next stage, I'm working for a different company and slightly my tune changes. So is that still then authentic, or how do you solve for that?
I don't think it's inauthentic at all. Any seller who's ever moved jobs, as they all have, will tell you that some of their first sales are to people they've sold to in the past, right? They built trust, they built reputation, they delivered on their promises, and successfully sold solution A into that buyer. And now they work for company B. If it's not a direct competitor that would require ripping out solution A, if it's something, adjacent to that, that's usually their easiest sale is the people that they've already rapport with and had built reputation and built trust with, right? Those are their first few sales. So just extend that thinking. If you are really showing up and speaking up and building reputation and building trust on social, and now you move companies, well, that trust goes with you. It's like, yeah, now, I look at myself. 3 years ago, I was mostly focused on LinkedIn. I was mostly focused on account-based marketing. That was most of what I talked about on LinkedIn. As I moved through my career, my focus changed, but I didn't change. My reputation didn't change. The fact that people believe that I mean what I say and I say what I mean, and I'm sincere in my desire to be helpful to others, that didn't change. I'm selling a different product now, but my reputation goes with me. So I would say all the more important in a world where AEs and others are changing jobs every few years, all the more important to build your own reputation and your own network and your own trust, because that's something you're investing in yourself. And that's something you take with you. And I don't think the fact that you go to a new employer and you start talking a little bit differently, I don't think that changes that. Hopefully you're not completely contradicting everything you used to say, because that would be weird. But, you can start to focus on different problems to solve. You can start to focus on different industries or different stakeholders in a completely authentic voice.
And I think, sorry, Tim, just to add to that, I think, Steve, you mentioned it at the very beginning, right? So if you start with yourself, with your profile, who you want to be and what you would like to talk about, maybe that's already part of it, right? And this way you can make sure yourself that it will stay authentic and it's not connected to your employer.
Yeah. Sometimes people have really cool about sections in their profile. Well, it tells a little bit of a story of, it's like, well, when I was 16, I started, I worked in retail and that taught me about blah, blah, blah. And then I went on and I did this and now I'm doing this. And this is why I'm excited to do it. And then they move to a new job. Well, they can just add on to that. And based on everything I learned there, now I've moved into this new role in this new industry, and it's very authentic. It's very human. It's very real. And it's so much more interesting and engaging than just someone who puts some corporate boilerplate about we're the industry's leading whatever. And that's the extent of their LinkedIn profile.
So now, if we consider our listeners, right, and maybe the companies they work for, they don't have a social selling program. Maybe they don't have technology to support them in that initiative. Maybe they just realize, hey, maybe I should actually become a little bit more active. What are the top 3 things that you would advise of doing to actually be successful in that endeavor as an individual? What would you say? Hey, stay away from this, avoid this, but rather do this. The top 3 things that come to mind.
Yeah, I think the first thing is fix your profile. I know I've mentioned this several times, but honestly, I've been talking about this stuff for a decade, and so have lots of other people. And still, go pick 10 random salespeople, and I bet you at least 6 of them have terrible profiles. It's like, really, a decade later. So you know what? LinkedIn is 19 years old. I was just looking that up. LinkedIn launched in 2003. I started on LinkedIn in 2006. It's wild to me that probably 6 or 7 out of 10 salespeople still have terrible profiles. So just fix that. It's not a boring resume. It's not a brag sheet. It's a market-centric, client-centric, buyer-centric document. Make it interesting. Make it about them. And build trust and build. So that's the first thing. Fix your profile. If you don't do anything else, fix your profile. Because you know what? People are going to check it out, and they're going to use that to help decide whether they're going to take your call, take that meeting, respond to that email. Fix your profile. That's just absolutely basic. Second thing is stop hunting and start engaging. That's just absolutely. I mean, don't be the 101st connection request that guy is getting today. Be different, be better, rise above the noise. Don't be the noise, rise above the noise. Start engaging in truly helpful. Start engaging with an honest intent to help and inspire and educate, and not just like a bait and switch. Ooh, you made eye contact. You made digital eye contact with me. I'm going to immediately go for the sale. No. So stop hunting and start giving would be my second thing. Fix your profile is number 1. Fix your approach would be number 2. And I think number 3 would be understand that this is not a magic bullet. It's not a hack. It's not something that's going to suddenly change. It's not like you're going to start doing this and it's going to magically transform your career. It takes time. We know this in other parts of our lives, right? Like if I eat healthy today, am I measurably healthier tomorrow? Of course I'm not. But what if I eat healthy most of the time for a period of time? Am I healthier? Yeah, I sure am. And we know that's true. And that's why we try to eat reasonably well most of the time. And that's why we try to exercise reasonably well most of the time. We trust the process. We invest for the mid and the long term. And then we get on LinkedIn and we forget that. And we just want magic, instant gratification. I've been sharing content for a month and it hasn't made me any money. LinkedIn is over and I quit, So fix your profile, fix your approach, and then finally fix your time horizons and learn to trust the process. You're investing in yourself. You're investing in something that will compound over time. I've been doing this for a long time and it keeps growing. I've got my network is twice as big as it was 2 years ago. The amount of engagement I get is twice as much as I got a year ago. But I'm still far behind where some people are in this. It's a journey. It's not a destination. You can't just throw the switch and now I'm a social seller. It's you got to trust the process. You got to invest in yourself and you got to think longer term. And I promise you, if you do, it will pay off over time, but just probably not as quickly as you think.
So if we dare to look into the crystal ball, right? I mean, we've comprehensively discussed how LinkedIn looks today, what type of mistakes people make, and what really means to do good social selling, meaningful social selling, right? But now, let's say in 5 years from now or 10 years from now, what will actually social media really look like?
I think what it's going to be is it's just going to become a natural part of what we do. So if you go way back, if you're old enough to go back to when email came in, so what are we talking, late 90s here? People were like, what? What? You want me to do what? Like, I've got a phone. I've got an answering machine. I'm busy. You want me to now do this other thing too? How much time do you want me to spend on these emails? Like, how many emails should I send? How many emails do you expect me to answer? I'm busy, It was this other thing. It wasn't in any way organic to the way people did their jobs. It was the other. And then pretty quickly it became just like, now no one would ever say, how many emails, like how much time should I spend on email? And why should I do email? It's just part of your life and your job, no matter what your job is, not just for sellers, for everybody. And you don't even question it. And frankly, if you just said, you know what, I don't believe in email. I'm not going to do email. Well, you're not doing your job. You're going to get fired, right? Like, you're not going to succeed if you just decide, nah, I don't really like email's not for me. Like, I think that's where we're going to go with social, that it's not going to be an other. It's not going to be, people will stop asking questions like, how much time should I spend on LinkedIn? How many times should I post? How many comments should I leave each day or each week? They're going to stop asking those questions, because it's just going to be part of what they do. It's going to be part of the fabric of their lives, the fabric of their profession. And it'll, as silly as it would sound today to say, yeah, no, I don't do email. It'll sound that silly 5 or 10 years from now to say, I don't do social. It'd be like, well, how are you a professional? So it's just going to become part of the fabric of what we do. I think that is more what's going to change, rather than some like new platform or new technology or new shiny thing.
I mean, sometimes I'm even tempted to say that the way you position yourself on social will also have a relevance on the value as an employee. Right? Even already today, if I have, I don't know, on LinkedIn, 10,000 followers, and it's the relevant target group, and I'm going towards a new company and say, hey, would you like to hire me for this and this topic? I mean, how much easier is it going to be for me to hire talent out of my network, or to position a certain message in my network? So in that sense alone, it's could be a shift in the way talent is being perceived, or it's an extra element how talent can be judged, whether it's something that someone that would employ or not.
100%. I absolutely, when I hire marketers, if someone is not active and not good on LinkedIn, I'm having a hard time understanding them as a modern marketer. And it'd be the same for salespeople and a lot of, so I totally agree, Tim. And I mean, everyone wants to be on a winning team. Everyone wants to be empowered and enabled in the workplace. And I think there's no better way of showing that you are a modern, empowering, enabling organization than to have a whole lot of your people really showing up as human beings and really engaging in that great conversation. I say LinkedIn is the greatest conversation the world has ever had, the greatest ongoing business conversation the world has ever had. And, when I see a company that has a whole lot of their people at all levels, including senior leadership, engaging in that conversation, well, that's a company I want to work for. I think it's huge for talent acquisition. And you know what else? It also is important for your reputation and your relationships inside your current company today. And I'm speaking from personal experience here. I am better known, better understood, better respected, and I have better relationships with people across our company, Tim, because of my activity on LinkedIn than I ever would have. People who in different countries, in different offices within North America, in the much higher reaches of the organization. I have much better relationships with senior executives than I ever would have if I was just quietly head down doing my job. The fact that I show up and speak up and engage actively on social with real intent to help myself and to help my firm, that's helping me internally in my current company today. Never mind how it's going to help me in the future. And I think that that's something that we often don't talk about. We don't talk about your internal brand and how important that is. It's not just about your external brand, it's your internal brand too.
Yeah, thanks for adding to that. Yeah, absolutely. It's something we haven't discussed up till now. So perfect point. And with that, I would like to conclude here, unless Jan has a funny look on his face. Obviously, the listeners can't see it, but it looks like you wanted to say something, Jan?
Yeah, I just want to ask you for a favor.
You want to ask me? Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, could you please answer my email from 3 weeks ago?
I don't do emails. Awesome. Steve, thank you so much for joining us here on the show. Thanks for sharing your experiences and insights. You've obviously been in this game for a long time, and I think there's plenty of things to take away from this conversation. We're going to put your LinkedIn profile, of course, in the show notes, if you don't mind, for people to reach out to you if they have further comments, questions on anything that we've here discussed today. But again, big thank you, Steve, for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me on, Tim. Jan, really appreciate it. And yes, I would welcome people to reach out on LinkedIn, not to pitch me, not to hunt me, but to connect like a human being. I share a lot of content. I write a lot of my own content, and I actively engage in the conversation, and I'd very much welcome more people to join that conversation.
Thank you so much, Steve, also from my side. I need to go and fix my LinkedIn profile now.
Get on it.
You better do that.
No, really, thanks for all your inspiration and sharing all that relevant stuff. So I really enjoyed it. Thumbs up to you.
So did I. Thanks for having me on, guys.
This was Jan and Tim here at the Sales Excellence Podcast, your podcast for software, B2B sales and pre-sales. Of course, you can also get in touch with us on LinkedIn, so please do reach out. Thanks for tuning in again, and until next time, cheers and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.